Okay, on this chart you can see a couple areas that were significant buy failures, and I'm going to show you how I was able to identify those using the structures that we've talked about in the market structure playlist, and give you some of the tools that you can do the same thing moving forward. So I've drawn the boxes here. I'm going to talk about how I was able to get to those and recognize those with the patterns of the structures that we've talked about. In order to understand where we are as the market opens, we were opening up here. You can also tell if you look down here at the volume indicator that this is where the volume picks up, 8:30 Central Time. That's where the market opens. So that's where we were starting to trade today. And we were assessing the market conditions and seeing that as of right here, everything behind this has failed on the short side, and so we're actually in a structural uptrend. So I cleared those boxes just so we can go ahead and figure out how we got them in the first place. I'm moving the chart now to be right about here where we would have been opening up. As the market opens, we see that there is an uptrend, there's multiple short sell failures, and if we're going through and doing our market context or roadmap and outlining what's going on, we see there's an LVN here, there's a break above it, but then also what we notice is that there's these big pullbacks as the market's opening, and we're seeing that if we use the fixed range volume profile, the market is not respecting these delta bands. So as the market comes up here, this should be a buy area. Make it green. Should be a buy area. There's a new high here. If this was going to be a strong trending day in the upside direction right out of the gate, this would have held. It did not hold. And so we can infer as the market's opening that this 1 minute time frame is not in a strong uptrend. That doesn't imply that it's going to reverse and go all the way down like it did end up doing, but we can say that if it's doing these big pullbacks, it's at the very least a two-sided market. And as it's pulling back, it's range bound between this high volume node inversion right here. Also a second attempt to short here. I can't give you any reasonable explanation about this big spike up here, except to say that if you're trading here, you can also infer that this may not be the absolute high. So anyways, we're making new highs here, and then let's say we're right here on the time frame. The market should hold this because, just really quick refresher, this is a delta band on the 1 minute chart of failed sell delta. So as it comes up here, if it's going to be a strong uptrend, we're going to buy right there. And it doesn't do that, it pulls back. So that tells us we're in a two-sided market. It returns to not only value, but also this inverted value area here, which is another support structure, and then it bounces strongly there. It continues to go up above that, implying that again, the new high isn't in, but this is critical support here. And we're going to just draw that a little bit further because later when that fails, it's actually one of our critical failure levels. One thing we can say is when there's a critical failure level, that indicates a market state shift, and those are where good opportunities lie. That's a little nugget there. Anyways, using the fixed range volume profile with the delta as the input for the volume, this is still a delta band right here on the upside, or on the, for trend continuation in the upside. As we keep going above that, this actually becomes one here as well, because you can see there's a pullback, and if this was going to trend, this is support. So if we're looking at the markets making a new high, making a new high, making a new high, there should be trapped sellers here. And you can see a little push up there, implying that people attempted to buy that, and then that fails there. That's not necessarily a critical failure at that point, but once it starts moving below this, you see that as we retrace up into it, this is the high of that retracement, and then we keep going down. So this is two delta band failures, and that implies that we're no longer in an uptrend, and actually the trend there is down. And then we see that we're going to talk about this one here, but we see later as the market finished out the day, it never really cleared this. If you were long biased throughout the day and you're trying to buy here for a trend, you're trying to buy here, you're trying to buy here, this is a fair value gap, you try to buy here, every single long attempt is failing. That means that the uptrend is not in effect, and therefore we should not be executing uptrend trades. So we zoom in a little bit, now we're on the 15-second chart, and as we failed, remember these are the failed delta bands from the 1 minute, as we failed two delta bands here, they show up a little bit on the 15-second, we actually can just pretty straightforward sell trapped buy delta. So on the 15-second, you can sell that. It never retraced to that. You want to stay away from these major structural supports like this, but then once that clears, you can continue to sell pretty much anything. If it's a high volume node, if it's trapped blue delta, if it's an inversion in a gap, like a fair value gap. One thing I've said before is that in certain market states, certain setups work almost 100% of the time. If the market's going down, you can pick any of the shorter time frame reasons to sell and then sell and be profitable. If you've misread the market state, doing that is not going to work. That's why it's super critical to understand these shifts and identify where critical failures have occurred. This is a critical failure. On the double inversion reclaim of this top, you can see that once that buy attempt fails here, there's a push up, it stays there for about a minute on the 15-second chart, a couple bars. Once we break below that, that's like a big flush and it just continues down basically for 2 hours at that point. There is an attempt to hold this area, and then this was another critical failure that we're going to talk about in a second. But we can see that as we look back at this, all of these high volume node areas need to be respected. Like this one down here, you don't want to be holding short or entering short in that. You don't really want to be entering short in the downtrend at the low here when there's residual support on the left side. You want to be waiting for retracements and retracements to value on a shorter term time frame. So we can continue to use the fixed range volume profile tool to do that. And you can see that as the market makes a new low here, selling value right there is successful. It's also blue delta. Selling value right there is successful. The value area hasn't changed. So we invert a blue delta area here, but the value is right there. And we see that the market state is still down. So if you think about how we use Confluent timeframes, and I'll make a video about that, but we have a 1 to 3 to 5 minute downtrend. Once the 15-second breaks in a downtrend, or we have a failed uptrend in the 15-second, you then have a shorter time frame confluence on that, and you can sell in those areas there. Like I was saying before, you don't want to be selling at the market into support, because if you're trading on high margin accounts, you're going to get liquidated. You can't really eat, 100 points? So there's reasons to buy on that too. This right here was the second critical, or a subsequent critical failure, and we'll talk about that now. If we look at how the delta is, how the volume is accumulating down and value is shifting down, that is also an indication that we're in a downtrend. So what does that mean? If we're drawing the structure, I'll clear the drawings here. So if we're taking the fixed range volume profile, this area, the way I have it set up, this area here is the highest volume area. At the top, I forget the exact percent, I'm not going to look and tell you. But as they're going down, this blue band is moving. And I scroll through a little bit more, you see that it keeps widening through here. And then if I go here, it even shifts a little bit down there. That tells you that there's more selling pressure, that the volume is actually accumulating towards the downside. You can see that these nodes over here are growing as I move it. So these are, let's say we started the trend here. These are a certain size, and then as we come down further, these are bigger. There's more volume accumulated over there. We continue to come down, and there's an equal sized node down here. The market's staying down here, and these nodes down here are growing. So that means two things. One, the first really what it means is there's sell side volume coming into the market. That means two things as far as our application. One, the downtrend is in effect, and two, if this gets heavy enough and then it reverses above it, there's potentially trapped sellers. But as the market continues down, that means that the people who have been establishing long positions on limit orders here are also trapped, and the market's likely to continue. So where's the critical failure in this structure? If I take this and we use the accumulation areas, the high volume nodes, as reference points, you see that the market's coming down here. We'll do it like this. Value is here, value is here, value is here, where this blue band is. Continues down, value is here. It's still, we're in a downtrend, so we can sell that. Value is here. As this goes through, we see that the value moves lower, and then price goes above that. So like I was just saying, when this gets heavy enough or fat enough, there's enough accumulated trades here, there's a very strong probability, aka you shouldn't trade against it unless you have clear confirmation, that this move above this blue delta on the 15-second and above this value band implies that there's an uptrend. That's a very textbook setup. Just gave away one of the secrets for free. If you made it through this far in the video, congratulations. You can go apply that right now and make money on it, hypothetically. Blah, 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 futures have risk. Don't take this, it's not trading advice, but maybe I know somebody who does do that. And either way, when you have a textbook setup like this that fails, so this comes up here and you see this attempt here, this is a clear as day textbook setup that we have reclaimed value and we have a 15-second delta inversion. Then it breaks. Huge, critical failure. And the market stays below that. It doesn't necessarily mean that this support over here is going to break, and you can see that it doesn't. But what we can do is, if we recognize that this level here is a critical failure, and this is where I was trading for most of the day, anytime it comes up into this, we can expect that it's going to retrace. So you have to respect the support on the other side where there's failure down here maybe, but every time we get buy pressure exuberance up in here, you can sell it, and then you get a retracement down to the failed shorts down there. Same thing here, big pullback, pretty instantaneous pullback. Comes up here, another pullback. This is actually a failed second entry short, but even so, we retrace below that and retest all the way down here. And you can see that the market starts, once it gets back up into this area where the critical failure was, we can mark maybe this whole push here as a critical failure. This whole area here is resistance now. And the first test here, we pull back. Second test here, we pull back. Third test here, we pull back. Fourth test here, pull back. Fifth test, pull back all the way back to the bottom. And then here's even another attempt. Once we go above that, this implies that this is now a failure of a failure, and this is a critical pivot. So we're going to mark that there. If this uptrend was going to hold from here, there's still plenty of reasons to sell that I haven't talked about over here because of the failures on this part and the failure up here, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about it a little bit. If really this is an uptrend at this point structurally, and then the uptrend inverts again. So that tells you that there is if it's an uptrend, it's very weak, and it's going to take some time to digest this more than likely. This was actually expected on the overnight market to hold here. This spike up, we have another value inversion. We see that it comes above this blue band here, and then buying, once we've got this move above here, buying that blue band was successful, and then we can, on the shortest term time frame, buy the value here. We've now shifted market states. Once this starts to fail, and then it fails this, we see that the market just flushes all the way back down to here, and we're likely to continue lower. So that's an explanation of the critical failures today. It started from these 1 minute delta bands up here. That's like a very critical market state analysis tool, you could say, like which context are you in. Then we had a critical failure here around the high volume node inversion. Then we had another one here where that was essentially a fake out to the upside where the value was inverting. This should have been a breakout higher, and then it fails lower. And then this became resistance. And then everything up here is still just residual support, because if we look at where the value or accumulated trades are from the day prior, remember this is a failure state to the upside. There's trap traders up here, and the market is now liquidating those trap traders now liquidating and driving the market down. And where's the bottom? I don't know. It could be right here. It's not likely to be right here. It's probably going to retest down here, maybe even push through. We have another shorter term time frame failure. This should have worked. This was another textbook setup to the long side that failed. So if we have multiple failures on the short and intermediate term of the uptrend, and we're going the down direction, failure up here, failure here, failure here, failure here, we're going down, hypothetically. So anyways, hope you found this informational. This was again geared towards maybe more of a serious trader, but I did talk about some of the structures that I've outlined in some of the other videos. So if you want to go look at those playlists, the market structure playlist, and take a look at that, you might get some more information on how you can put this stuff together. As always, feel free to send me a message. Happy to help.